Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we proudly provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here today for another episode of my show, Judgment, the Hidden Sin. This is based on a book that I wrote. You can see it here behind me, Holy But Harmful, The Silent Sin of Judgment. Judgment is something that we do all the time. And my job with this show and my book and bringing on my guests is to help us be aware of when and how we're judging other people and when we can catch ourselves and remember the three questions before we speak, before we write, before we type. Is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it true? So let's get to the meat and the heart of our show today. We have an incredible guest. Thank you to Mickey Mickelson from Creative Edge, who always sends us the best people. My guest today is Alan R. Warren. He is a Canadian best-selling true crime author. He's also a producer, and he has his own radio show. How cool is that? It is a radio show and podcast called House of Mystery. And his show can be found all over North America. He's authored over 38 books. We're going to get into one of them today, which is covering serial killers, cults, human trafficking, historical crime, and more. Why is it we are so fascinated with this genre? I don't know. We're going to get into it with Alan, who's the expert. Let's welcome him to the program, Alan R. Warren. Hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Boy, it sounds like I've been busy.
You certainly have been busy. And so I know you've done a number of interviews yourself, which is really interesting to be on both sides of the microphone. So today I want to get into a little bit about the background of the work that you do, because it's so important. So your latest book, and I'm going to share it on the screen right now with our viewers, because I think it's important. People need a good visual. So here it is, Peace, Love, and Murder, the Charles Manson Story. And as I mentioned, you've authored 38 books, and I'm sure there are more coming. But today we're going to talk about what we don't automatically think about when we're reading books like this or having stories or conversations, is about the judgment piece of it. So Alan, my first question for you is this. Most people know the name Charles Manson, right? And they associate it with one of the most infamous crimes in American history. But the work that you do goes so much deeper than the crime themselves. So what I'd like to know from you is, what do you think people still misunderstand about the Manson story more than 50 years later?
I think the biggest thing that people get wrong is that Manson himself wasn't this super genius. Like, people like to put that on killers and mass murderers or serial killers for some reason. I guess because of television shows or movies or stuff like that, Hannibal Lecter, but he wasn't that all in one. And if anything, what he was is reactive. He was like, everything he did or got into was usually a reaction for something that he had done before, something that had happened to him, and he needed to react to it. How is he going to fix this? What was he going to do? How is he going to make it better? So in his mind, he was, in some cases, even panicking over something he had done. And then he reacted, and then he had to fix that. So if anything, he was kind of a clumsy guy at this stuff. It wasn't like this great, intelligent, super smart guy. So I think that's the biggest thing people get wrong.
Thanks for sharing that. And I did read that he had average intelligence. I guess it was 109 on his IQ. And the interesting thing is, I'm a huge person that loves to watch crime and gangs and mobs and all the movies. Like, that always draws me in. And I think somehow we kind of romanticize it, actually not thinking about these are people and this is actually life and what's happened. So what I'd like to know from you now is, based on the research that you've done, what is it that as humans we become almost entranced? It's sort of like, wow, I want to follow this person. How did Charles Manson get people to follow him like that, knowing between right and wrong, and yet people still followed him? And I'm sure there are people today who are still thinking, wow, this was a cool guy.
Yeah, a lot of it's within ourselves. It's what we feel we're lacking, or what we feel we need to achieve, or and someone comes along that seems to have it all, have what we want, or have what we desire. They're doing something that we can't do, or there's usually something like that. With Manson himself, you got to remember that he only was able to do what he did because of the timing and where he was. Like, his way of luring or getting people to follow him, so to speak, or be totally into him, was mainly because of his attention. He knew that so many of the young teens, 14, 15-year-olds at the time, were into the hippie movement, running away from home, or even the parents giving them away or dropping them off at communes and letting kids be free, and Woodstock and marijuana. That whole thing was really a part of a lifestyle. But still, at a 14, 15-year-old level, they were still looking for love. They were still looking for acceptance. And I think he knew how to do that really well in those conditions. The way of meeting a girl and spending particularly intensive time with them, eye-to-eye contact, letting nothing else take his focus away from that girl. So that was really the attention they were looking for, and he understood that. That was one thing he knew well. But again, without it being 1965 or in that area, and being in San Francisco and that area with everything that was going on, it wouldn't have worked the same. It had to be there. So it's so much of it is to do with the timing, and why people look for this or do this. I think it's also timing as well. What's going on in the world, what's going on with our family around us and stuff. So much of that intertwines. So you can't just say one particular thing. It's just a group of things.
It sounds like it was the perfect storm. And situations like this continue to occur, but in different forms. And so if we look at what's going on in the world today, or we look at a number of criminal cases where it was financial or otherwise, there's usually someone at the forefront who is the face of that organization or that movement, and they have a lot of charisma or charm. There's something about them that lures people in. So based on what you were just sharing, sometimes we are going through a lot of things in our own life. We might feel broken or empty or alone. And then we meet this charismatic person who makes us feel like we're the only person in the world. And then we sort of blindly follow. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and he did that perfectly, and people still do it today. You're right. It's just done in a different way. It's done to the setting. It's done to what's going on around the world, or in your country, or even in your state, or whatever's going on. And so we're looking for that comfort. We're sort of looking for acceptance. The younger we are, the more we are. And with him, he was able to understand that. Maybe it's because a lot of it he had himself. A lot of his own discomfort came from his young family life, and came from his prison time when he was young, and he was dealing with that. And in prison, in fact, he learned a lot about different things, from different religions, different faiths, and he cherry picked the best parts of each to use in his own sort of sermons or speeches to his family and stuff like that. So he was working that. For him, it was his life. Okay, so it wasn't just, especially at the beginning, it wasn't like an idea of he's going to get a family and they're going to do all these murders and stuff. In his mind at that time, this was the way he was meant to be, and that kind of grew into him becoming, God's son or Jesus and stuff. He started getting into this sort of putting himself in a place above, and that. But that was further down the line.
Thank you for sharing that, Alan. I think something that also comes to mind is I know for myself, I'm a peace ambassador. I'm very compassionate and empathetic and always want to give someone another chance. And so with Manson, even though he had committed a number of crimes and he was in and out of jail, and his mother had her situations, and then his ex-wives, etc., people still forgave him. They still thought, okay, in my mind, I'm thinking they thought there must be some part of him that's good. And maybe that's not what it was at all. Maybe it was more about them. But my question for you is, how do we know when enough is enough and we can't blindly follow someone and say, you know what? I see this body of work that you have, and I'm going to choose to take a pass and not get engaged, as opposed to, hey, let me see if I can help this person, straighten them out, fix them.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because usually when we're in that position, if we're in that place where we are following someone, and as you say, kind of more blindly, and so it gets to the point where we only see the good or we ignore the bad or whatever the case, it's really tough for us to say, oh, well, maybe this is wrong or that's enough. You have to have that experience in you to do that. And it's hard to believe in ourselves that we've made the mistake, that we've chosen the wrong person or persons, depending on the situation, and that's just something that we don't do easily. We don't, like, what's the old saying? We want to know the truth, but only to a certain limit, right? There's only a certain amount of truth that we want to take in at a time. And so if you ended up dedicating a lot of your life and doing things like giving up family members, friends, your life, so to speak, as it was, to go with someone and to follow them, like in this particular case, it's really hard to pull out. I mean, you hear about it with relationships too. People get in relationships, and once it goes far enough, it becomes very difficult for them to leave that situation, even if at times they know it's not right, or there's a problem, or it's even wrong and they should get out. They'll stay with it because it seems to be easier that way than confronting, I guess it's confronting that danger that could be, it's hard to say in that particular time.
Absolutely. It reminds me of a saying that one of my relatives used to share, which is the devil is better than the one you don't know. So it's kind of like, don't stir the pot, let everything stay as it is. So this show is about judgment. And part of what I do is to teach people not to call people names, not to label people. Yet the term monster has been a label for Manson for a very long time. So I'm kind of struggling with, how do we not label based on the behavior that we see? What is the behavior of a monster, so to speak, as opposed to someone who really needed help, or maybe never got the love that they needed, or never felt supportive, came from a broken home, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I think that, you're right. This Charles Manson is in all particular cases. He had a terrible childhood. He needed help earlier, and he needed support and some sort of family around him, and he didn't have that, and he managed to deal with things as he could, the best he could. Everything was just sort of done as it was, so he was in a bad situation. And I think to call him names and stuff, or call him he's a monster, he's this and that, I think that's a normal reaction, because we're sort of letting off the stress. We're kind of it's awful how far it went and what he did. And so when we look at that, we think of them as something awful, and it's just easier that way. I'm not as having a problem with that. I think that that's sort of us dealing with that case. I think the problem comes when we're in the middle, where it didn't really affect us directly, but yet we're still calling him or even others or other people names, and we sort of get lash out or anger. I'd say almost 9 times out of 10, when someone calls someone else a name and someone calls other people down, and they're saying bad things or judging, as you would say, it's usually something within themselves that's causing that, or the type of day they're having, or what's going on. It's like when you look at a review on a book or you look at something, sometimes you'll see something that has nothing to do with what they're reviewing or what they're saying. It's to do with what's going on in their life. So a lot of that judgment, name calling and stuff is a way of letting out maybe angst, stress, who knows? It's just letting it out, and we're putting it in a place that we think deserves that name. So I think, that's probably it.
I love that comment. That is so on point. So when we think about monsters, right, we can look at what's going on in the world, and some people would easily step forward and say, well, he's a monster, she's a monster, what they're doing is monstrous, etc. But very few people actually get involved, step up, do something, help other people. And so I want to talk a little bit about group psychology. I remember there was a TV show on, and I don't know the title, but it was basically they had a group of actors do something in a public venue, and then people would just start following along and doing the same thing, because we get in this mindset, oh, let's follow the masses. So what do you think it is in this case with Manson that the followers actually got on board and did his dirty work for him?
Well, you're right. There's that group mentality, right? So you get a group of people, and they act a certain way, and you join that group or you're part of that group. You sort of follow along, or you don't stay in the group, you leave right away. But what happens is they get in the group, everyone's talking and acting the same way, and then so you follow along, you just go with it. Some of the followers I talked to just went along with it because that's just, they didn't know what else to do. It's kind of a cop out in a way, but it's what people do every single day. You see it online with the groups, and social media and groups, how a group would sort of take a direction and talking about a person or a subject or a group, and people jump along and just go along. I guess it's kind of a camaraderie. It's just some sort of like you belong, and you're doing it, and you're part of the whole thing. Not too many people look at it from an outside point of view when they're within the group, right? So, and how Manson did it was, how do you say, he sort of told them things every single day, and made them actually act out in sessions. So, when he thought the Black Panthers were after him in the group, he started making people take 24/7 guard around, the ranch. That's all they did. And so he had them act and react as if it were true. And when people are going through the physical motions, it helps them, it reinforces the believing of what they're being told. So he would make them act out things and do things, which made it even more real. And after a period of time, they start to believe it because they're living it.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And I think all of us want to feel that we're needed,
Right.
that someone cares, that we're making a difference. And I think that can be some kind of manipulation at times, but many times we're open to it because we feel like we have no value and we don't belong anywhere. So I want to switch a little bit to your writing, if that's okay with you.
Oh, sure.
So you have written about a number of crimes and cults, etc. Have you, as a writer, ever felt that you were judged because of the genres in which you were writing?
Oh, all the time from day one. And not only, I think what I've done is I've learned that over the years that, again, it comes from the person that is doing the judging. There's something going on in their life or in their day when they do it. The other thing is, I know what I do can be I don't know, maybe negative to some people, but that's not the intention. A lot of what I write about is the timing, So, like when I took on the Manson one, for instance, it was about 1965, San Francisco, and what was going on. And I took the area and what's going on in the country and the war and the Weathermen Underground, the Black Panthers, the race riots, the moon landing, right? 65 to 69, 70. I was going with the whole timing. So I write a book about the time and the place. And then Manson was just a character that had a lot of influence and an effect at the time, a lot. And so it talks about how he goes through that setting and how a lot of things within the setting, the timing, made him do things that made him have to react and act. And so it was kind of a combo there. It's more about a historical part than it is about the killing. And even in my writing, I don't get into the gore, and I don't, so there's a lot of good writers that can do that. That's not really the point of it. The point of it is more about the whole subject of what's going on in the timing. And not only that, then someone from, let's say, born in 2000 can read a book like this from which covers the 60s, and they can understand it better because they feel the setting, they feel what's going on. And from that, then they understand more why people live a certain way, act, react. It's so important to cover all of that. You can't just talk about Manson without the whole setting, the whole timing. Otherwise, you don't get a lot of it. A lot of it is missed, and it's more about how we act and react and how we live in these situations.
Thank you, Alan. A question I have is, and this is just from my own experience as a coach, when I first started coaching people and people would tell me their stories, I would start crying. I'd be like, ah! And then I thought, okay, I'm not serving any value whatsoever because I'm getting so emotionally involved. So how is it that you've written these 38 books and you've been able to keep your emotions at bay and not been drawn into it? And it sounds like the one aspect is you don't go into the gore of it, but still, if you were writing a bunch of children's books about Susie skipping down the lane, that might have a different impact on you than writing these books. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I think that I think what it is for me personally is when I go through cases where I'm talking to a lot of people that are still alive that are involved, and especially if you're talking to a lot of the survivors or family members and stuff like that, it is hard. It is harder to go through that when you're in the time where you're sitting with people for days at a time and weeks, and you're picking up how they are, who they are, what's happened to them, what's happened to their family, and over the years. So that's kind of something that you do pick up. But I don't mind that as much. I don't mind being drawn into feeling because it helps me understand better. I think what it is you got to take care of yourself too, and on the outside of it. So when that's going on, a lot of times, I have my dogs. I have dog rescue, and I'm hanging out with the dogs because it brings me back to today, to now, to the moment, and so much of that is what I need in order to get on to the next subject and stuff like that. And so that's the hardest part when you deal with killers or bad people themselves. I don't find that particularly hard, and some people find that strange, but I don't. You meet someone and they've done a lot of bad things, and you're in a prison and you're talking. I don't know. I'm not really uncomfortable with that. If anything, I think I picked up that most of the people I've met, you find that they're just normal people. Well, except for what they did wrong, but they're like, if you just had met them in a supermarket or if you met them on the street or at a bus stop, you wouldn't think anything different. They would fit right in. And I think that's kind of the most bizarre thing about meeting the bad guy, so that's kind of where that is. So again, that one doesn't stay with me the same as dealing with, or talking with survivors or people that have been hurt by the crime.
Yes, it sounds like there has to be certain boundaries that are there, and then you have to do your own self-care so you can let it go.
Yes, yeah, you have to. It's important to take care of yourself. And that's kind of a thing that a lot of us don't do. Even myself at times, you forget or you miss it and you're getting involved in something and the time goes by and you don't realize that, oh, I need to stop here. I need to relax and go for a walk with the dogs, go hang out and just go do something away from it. I call it real life because they do. They take you back to real life, no matter what you see about yourself online or in social media and groups, and people will say good and bad things all the time. And you can just sort of, it just takes you back to now, here and now, because that's what we have that's important is the moment. And to make those moments, the more good moments we make for ourselves, the better it is that we deal with the harder moments, I think.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Alan, I remember when I was doing one of my first interviews at an actual television station, the guest had been booked in. I didn't know who it was. I just got some information quickly before we went on. And it turns out that he had just gotten out of prison. He was convicted of murder.
Oh.
And I remember when I was reading through this sheet before I started interviewing him, I felt this feeling of absolute terror and panic that, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. And what does this mean? I immediately judged him. And
Yeah.
I realized that today. And when I'm interviewing people today, it's a different story, but we still have that judgment. And so my question for you is, when someone announces, I'm looking for a job and I do have a criminal background, or I'm interested in dating you and I was in prison, how is it that we can release the judgment and look at the person for who they are today? Or should we have our antenna up and go, well, they did it once, they could do it again?
Well, geez, that's a tough one. I think that we have to be somewhat have our antenna up and be a little bit aware of who we're interacting with and who we're going out with and who we're meeting and stuff like that. So I think that's okay. But when you automatically go into a mode where you're judging, you see someone, oh, well, and we're lazy and we group them, they're this, they're that. We have to stop when that happens and think why we just did that or why we said that, and kind of try to understand why we do that. Again, it's kind of a common thing, and it's something we do all the time. You see, it's that group thing. We get up in the morning and, oh yeah, this and that, and then we get online, on social media, and they're talking about this. Yeah, well, they're this and they're that. We kind of get into that habit of doing it several times a day in every aspect of our life. Everything that we're doing, we're just, you go through the drive-through to get a coffee and it's, or the order's wrong. Yeah, well, like we want to have that, and we just get into that habit. We've got to stop. When you find yourself doing that, I think you got to think about it and kind of go, no, that's no. And you got to break that habit. And there's different ways. It depends on where you find that you're doing it the most. And I think that's what you got to focus on in order to change the way you're doing. I think it's just a lot of times we just do it without thinking. And that's kind of the hard part, because we'll do that and then we don't realize that we've upset someone or upset other people because we just do it and we don't think. And coming from the generations like even me, Gen X, and you get into the baby boomers, things were pretty wild in our childhood. People just said all sorts of things and made all sorts of statements and judgments without even giving it a second thought. It was common. It's common. And so again, it's lifestyle. We just have to change our habits and really be aware of what we're doing and saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about that awareness, being aware. And so that's why I even do this program. Alan, I'd love to hear about your work as an international radio show host and podcast host. I find that so fascinating. Tell us about your show, House of Mystery.
Well, House of Mystery, it really started out of an accident on a Phoenix station, and at 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday, and it was more about a response to mystery. What's a mystery? As in, it could be anything. It could be from ghosts to a JFK assassination to whatever it is, just a mystery, something that there's people have a lot of questions about, and interviewing people that were involved in the situation, whether they, the flat earth, or, they're part of NASA and stuff. And so it started out that way, and it's developed over 15 years into a show more the mystery of writing and art. So we've kind of we've gone through and we've transferred into people that create things and how their life is and what they do to create them, and what's important to them, and stuff like that. So it's become a mystery of art. How's that? So it's a lot more subtle of a show, no judgment.
Well, you are truly creative, and I'd love to have you share with our audience some of the realities that you have experienced being a radio show host, because things happen when you're doing interviews. And I know, and people might not know this, there's no script. You have no idea what I'm going to ask you. I don't know what I'm going to ask you. It's just a natural flow. But things happen. I remember one time I knocked my computer off, was pointing toward the ceiling. So can you share with us anything that was unexpected, whether it was good or bad, that happened during the last 15 years of this work?
Oh God, all sorts of things happen, especially if you're live and you're sitting with someone in a studio or something, right? It's crazy. I've had people get into a fight with I've had all sorts of stuff with each other, and but most of it's really good overall. Some of the things I could share, but I don't know if I should. But you talk about judgment. I've been on with, we've had people that do TV shows that have all of a sudden come out and started saying stuff about groups of people and stuff when you're on the news break or something, and you're like really feeling awkward and stuff like that. Or people like F. Lee Bailey, the lawyer, scared me. I mean, because I was supposed to, we're supposed to interview him, and all of a sudden, about an hour or so before the show, my cell phone rings, and it's him. And he's like, Al Warren, yes, this is Lee Bailey. You're going to interview me. You see the number? Call me when you're ready. And then he hangs up. I was terrified, because I was I was fairly new. And all of a sudden there's this like guy, and how'd he get my number? And he's calling me, and it's like, and he's so serious. And then he just hangs up. And I was scared, like the guy, things like that. You either learn to go with it, or it stresses you out and you leave, right? But I think what it was I was lucky enough to be producing other people's shows before this. And so I got used to dealing with a lot of guests, and they're at different level, all sorts of people, right? And they have all sorts of quirks and things they need, and you get used to that over years. And then, so it's different when but when you're live and you're talking to someone, you hope that they do okay, right? But again, I'm not as stressed as I used to be. I used to be really upset and worried about everything, and this and that and that. And then plus everybody comments. You know how it is. People have to say things. I don't know why, but they have to say stuff. We have people that will listen to the show 5 days a week and will write after each show every day about how much they disliked it. And how much they disliked what we were doing and the guest and stuff like that. And you're thinking, well, you write this every day. Why? Turn the channel. There's so many shows out there, so many things to listen to. You don't have to, thousands you can get on podcast now, and not just radio. I just take a break, turn it, if it's bothering you that much. I just couldn't see. And that's what you say, judgment. But you see, they're so drawn into this that they feel they have to do it. I think that's the thing what social media has done. It's gone from us just doing it without thinking about it, or doing it as a common way of life. Like we're all just sort of going around judging people. And do you see her hair? Do you see his tie? That sort of thing. We're just kind of get into this. And now it's gone to with the social media platform where we feel we have to go on every day and do it, like to be a part of it. And so, I couldn't imagine following a show 5 days a week, and to go online and actually write how much I don't like listening to the show. Like, it seems bizarre,
Doesn't
you
add
know?
up.
Yeah, it's like, okay, then turn the channel. Okay, there's a lot of other places to listen to shows, right? You don't have to stay. And it's like, why are you taking all this time? Just, you're and they listen too, because they even talk about the guests. So they've listened to the show, and they'll tell you how much they dislike it and all that. And it's like, wow, okay. You're investing a lot of time just to be negative. And I think that's where it's gone with social media, unfortunately, because it's such a good tool. We could do so much good with social media and the internet and all this. There's so many possibilities, but yet there's that element where we have to be negative for some reason, or just I think it gives people a charge, makes you feel better about yourself, maybe. Um, I don't know. Maybe if I was a psychiatrist, I would know better. I don't. That's just kind of my guess. But
I agree with you also. So we're on 12 different platforms right now, but we're obviously on YouTube, and YouTube now has another audience, which is just for mobile phones. So they've got two different sets of, so as soon as the mobile phones came on, I started getting, oh, are you the crypt keeper? You had too much work done on your teeth. I'm like, I haven't had anyway. And I don't put their comments up, but I would say, do you have anything else that you can do? But it's almost like people, they don't even associate the fact that they now have put negative hatred comments out in the public domain, and you see their name. It's like, okay, that person is a hater. But
yeah,
they could take that time and do something constructive with it, helping other people, but yet they don't see it like that. So
no,
that brings
no.
me to my next question for you. And I wish we had hours, because I have so many things to ask you. But the world is going through a lot of things. And if my
Yeah.
parents were still alive, they would say, you know what, it's something different. It looks different, but there's always chaos. And so in your book, Peace, Love, Murder, you actually talk about opportunity and chaos. And so do situations where, we're in a war and we've got an administration that people hate or they love, or whatever the case may be, people are filled with hatred on social media. Are these conditions where a Manson type situation could develop again?
Oh, totally. Totally. I think that a lot of the things that are going on today, because I do a lot of history, I'm reading a lot of papers and things from the 50s and 60s and 70s. And so much of the stuff I come across, I see it being repeated today. So many of the same sayings, some of the same angers, and hate things people are hating on, they're identical. The names have changed and the groups have changed in some cases, but it's the same sort of fights. It's the same sort of anger and unsettled feeling. And you, when you put yourself back in that place, which I do, because I'm trying to write it from a point of, like, if you get up in the morning, what do you do? What do you do for breakfast back in 1960? How do you live? And I go through the life of a person. So you start putting it, and what they were going through at that time must have been just as scary as what is going on to us now. It's equivalent to the time. So I think that these things are part of what humans do. It's not an excuse, and in a way, it's not a resolution, but it's just something that we go through. And as each generation comes out, they deal with these problems over and over again, and sometimes they deal with it in a more positive, constructive way, and sometimes it's real negative. I think the problem is today, it reminds me of McCarthyism era, where there's a lot of negativity. A lot of people are angry and unsettled, and they take it out on the easiest thing for them, the easiest that, the worst problem today, the one thing that is different today, is the ability to communicate with the internet and social media. So there's a lot of conspiracy and a lot of made up stuff that goes around that people buy into, and that makes it worse, because then you're not dealing with a group of people that have the same reality anymore, not the same truth. And so that's really a hard thing. And I don't know. I think we'll just work through this. I think it'll be just like it was before. But I think we got to change our focus into something more positive. Instead of looking at a negative thing that happens, what's good about today? Like if you get up and you go looking, what's great about, geez, it's a nice day. I've got this, I've got that. Start looking at the things that we have and the positive things. It's not that the problems aren't there, but look at it from a positive point. Look at it from what we can achieve and what we have rather than what we're losing, or, oh my God, you're at a war. War is terrible. People die. It's terrible. But what can we do in our own lives to be positive around each other? Because, one thing leads to another. If we've got to be nice to each other, nice to ourselves and to each other. And it's not easy, but that's what we have to start doing. And then hopefully it spreads, sound all kumbaya, but you know what I mean? You just got to go in the right direction. Well, we've got to go in the right direction. We've got to start looking toward the good things and building off of that, right? Because it doesn't change. If we see something and go, well, oh, I hate that, or hate, especially politics, they hate this party, or hate this, I hate that. It's like, well, our media, man, we sure got slaughtered the last little while, right? With stuff like, it's all fake and it's all bad and stuff like. It's like, well, no, I know a lot of people work for a lot of different networks, and they're just normal people. They go to work, they come back home, they see their wives and kids, and all of a sudden they're the bad guy. They're working for somebody, and they're CIAs, or you're getting paid, and it's like, no, they're just doing what they do. And there's good and bad media people, and there's people that take it serious, do a good job, do research and check out things, sources, and there's ones that don't, right? That's just, you got to start holding people accountable, particular people, rather than just groups. I think that's the first thing. This lazy, it's so much easier just to take a whole group and say, oh, they're all bad, and that's kind of the wrong way to go about. We got to be more positive and helpful with each other rather than negative. So
totally agree. Alan, do you have about another 10 minutes?
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just drinking coffee. So,
so what I'm thinking of is, I'm a huge reality TV person. I don't have any cable. I only watch reality TV shows. And I think about Traitor. I think about Survivor. I think about Is Love Really Blind? And I could go on and on and on. And part of the premise is gameplay. And the gameplay is to make as many friends as possible, to manipulate people so that they want to follow you, so they don't vote you out, so they pick you, or that you are the ultimate liar and get the money at the end. So my whole point in this is, as a society, these shows are more and more popular. And basically the behavior that's being rewarded is not, let's have world peace, let's find inner peace. It's like, let's manipulate each other so that I can crawl and step on top of you so I can get the money. And even in Love is Blind, which I'm a big follower of that, you can tell the same story to 3 different people. Oh, I really care about you. I really love you. I think I'm going to pick you. You're my number one. So what is this telling us about society when the reward is not something that will benefit all of us, but it is typically something monetary, or maybe it's a relationship through a wall that I can still be attracted to, even though I can't see you. And then I see you and I go, sorry, but not sorry, not attracted to you.
Yeah. Well, again, geez, I am embarrassed. One of our co-hosts, our True Crime co-host, was on Traitor on season 2. So I don't know. I think it's the quick reward. I think it's the instant gratification of being in the spotlight, and then even if it's doing something wrong, and it's you get more praise from public by putting someone down than you do putting someone being positive. You put a positive thing on social media. Look at, this is great. Look at, I love this. And this is great. This guy's doing this and he's helping this. And you get 1 or 2 likes, right? You put something up like, oh, look at this guy, he can't drive, or he's doing this. Look at this, he fell down, right? All of a sudden 200 people like it, and they laugh at it and make fun of him and say things about this person. And it's like, holy cow. I don't know what it is. I don't know why we do this. There's a natural instinct to do that. Just like when we're writing, I'm writing about people that do bad things and killers and stuff. And there's this natural, we want to root for the bad guy. I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from. Perhaps because we always looked at the government or the people as you know, the I you know, it's really hard to say, you know, if we looked at them as the bad guy. Look at how many people idolize gangsters, you know, from 100 years ago, you know, and Al Capone and all these Bonnie and Clyde, all these people that did some really awful things, but we make movies of them, we glorify them, and we think they're awesome. It's like, well, why? What did they do? They stole stuff. They shot people. They were mean. They were rude. What? Why is that a thing that you idolize? Because why do we want that? Like, why do we think, oh, this is great? You know, and it's so hard, you know, and even when you write negative, you know, like about negative stories, like this book, like Manson, or like any of the ones I've done, you try to. I spend so much time with the survivors and the people that dealt with it and went on, but people still want the Manson. You know, it's all about him. It's not about the survivors. It's his name that they're carrying on and talking about. And look how badly, you know, in that particular case, look how badly they treated Tate and Polanski. My God, you know, like him, he was after 9 months, he was devastated. And when you talk to him, he was so frustrated because as soon as the killings happened, all the papers, the big papers too, these are the major ones, they were reporting that the Tate household was you know, it was just like a big an orgy, and they were sacrificing goats and they were doing drugs, and it was a drug deal gone bad, and it was all this stuff, and you're like, what? That's crazy. And there was nothing to that, and it was so strong in the media for the first 6-7 months, really, that even the two different police departments that were covering the different murders, still didn't and refused to assign them to the same killer. They refused to put it together because they really believed in that. And I guess we'd rather see these famous celebrities be something bad, and then we can talk about them because it makes us feel better. You know, that's what, you know, you see some movie star or singer, and it's like, well, so we have to make fun of them because they're looking and doing what we kind of want, maybe, or we wished we had. It just goes beyond over and over again. I never understood it. So I think that's part of the reality. Like when you know, I don't watch these shows, so I'm stuck in the 70s right now because I'm writing stuff in the 70s. So everything on my TV is everything from, well, 60s and 70s, everything from what's my line to Match Game. Because why watch the shows that were real back then? It's because you can see how people talk to each other. You see their expressions, how they behave, what's acceptable in the way they talk to each other and what they do. And you pick up a lot. So it makes it so that I think the book is better because I'm explaining. Yeah, I let you see how it really is, especially for people nowadays. So, but I see some pretty wild things and I hear some and I was around then, but I was just a kid. So I guess I didn't realize it. But as an adult, I listen to it, I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they're talking like this, right? And you're like, wow, this was okay. This was common. So in a way, there's something that I think it will grow over time when people are so anti-woke right now. And I really kind of look at it as, isn't it sort of the young generation revolting to the old generation in a way? In a way, isn't like, because when we were kids, we wanted to do things different than our parents. We saw the way they were, and we sort of wanted to. I don't want to wear a suit and a tie every time I go to the store or doctor, right? We started changing things. We wanted to grow our hair longer as guys. You know, we want to listen to rock music or disco or whatever. Each generation has their own little bite back to the parents. I think that's what this is now. They look at the way we behaved and talk to each other, and they go, oh, they don't like it. And so I think that we should just let it be. I mean, I just, you know, let's not get involved government wise and start making laws, but let the kids do what they want to do. If they want to be nicer to each other and be more caring to each other, great. But then again, that's turned into this whole cancellation and all that sort of stuff. So it's a hard thing to deal with. But the reality shows, in a way, don't they just aren't they just kind of mean? Aren't we happy when someone we don't like on there loses? You know what I mean? Like you see these shows, and it's like you're thinking, this person, they better not win, or you don't want them to win because, I don't know, they're too pretty and they're too whatever, and you don't like them, and it's like, and they lose, and you're like, yeah,
Exactly.
And so it's deep. It goes back a long ways, and it's going to take, I think, a lot of generations to really work out this.
Yep.
This thing.
You made so many great points. And what came to mind, I loved Breaking Bad, and I watched it 6 different times. Yet I am not a drug user, and I'm not an advocate of drugs. And yet I couldn't stop watching it because of the dynamics of watching Walter White completely succumb to this other world for money. And
Right.
So I think for me, that's why I like watching shows like this, because it really gets into what's going on in someone's mind. And it brings me back to the Manson story, because people love watching shows where there's violence. I'm not saying everyone. I know people who don't, but yet at the same time, they don't want to see violence on their television. But if the movie or the TV show is an actual depiction, or the book of what actually happened, then it's okay, because now we're in La La Land and we're kind of on vacation, and it's not the same thing. So we need to have a psychiatrist or psychologist come with us, Alan, the next time, to really get through a lot of this.
Tell us what we're doing wrong.
Yeah, tell us what's really going on here. So my next question for you is peace, love, and murder. What do you want people to take away from reading this book?
I think that the biggest thing is a lot of the people that were involved in this thing. I think it's just learning lifestyle. It's learning how people. That's sort of why I have sections with a lot of the different followers or people that were part of the family, and it's just understanding their life, where they came from, and how they're all just average people, just people living their life, and how 1 or 2 decisions took them into this situation. So I think it's more about realizing who we are, where we're at, what we're doing, and how things we do and say affect others, right? How our behaviors will change other people, and not always for the good. And I'm hoping people understand more about the setting, and more about Manson, and more about the family, and how they kind of got into what they were doing and thinking it was normal, and how they were isolated. And that's another thing, getting isolated within the same sort of people around you. So everyone's in there, in that, in the ranch or the farm, and everyone's doing the same thing, talking the same way, believing the same way, and they don't have interactions with people that are different, or people that are living different. And so then they kind of get stuck into that, and then it's us versus them is what it eventually turns into. Always does. It has to, because you do cross paths somewhere in this world, and so it's always, they're always the enemy. And people, I hope people just understand the timing better, and see it's more of a action, reaction, and behavior, sort of like what we see in today's world. And hopefully they kind of get a little bit calmer, and realize that things happen, and we need to think about the effects we have on others around us by the way we act and behave. And you see that in social media. Maybe get out and meet people live, because then you learn the most about other people, right? That way, rather than through a computer. But I think it's simple as that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, we'll take the computer for today, because that's where we are. And for people who will be able to watch this at a later point, it will be turned into a podcast on the podcast platforms. We are showing your website right now, and we are showing the covers of your books. So what would you like people to know overall about you as an author, and why they should purchase your books?
Why not? No, as an author, I don't listen. If you like a book about, again, like I really take it from a historical point of view and write about how the time, the setting. If you really want to learn about a timing in a certain place, like they see that Beyond Suspicion, Russell Williams, it was a Canadian killer that he was in the military and stuff. Just learn about a situation, and it's they're not gory and they're not real mean witting or anything like that. And I don't make judgments. It's more about this is what's going on. This is how the country is, the world is. These are what people are doing. This is how someone lives. These are the things going on. And then you can kind of get a better feeling for, let's say, the negative or the bad characters, and maybe kind of see how things turn into bad crimes. And I guess I'm trying to say that I'm not necessarily blaming one particular person. It's not cut and dry, these cases. It's not just, oh, this is it, bad guy, a psycho, he goes out and does this. It's more about there's a whole community, there's a whole lot of things going on, and something happens. And so why does that happen? And what's going on in that community? Because I still believe that things like in Manson's case, for instance, or in any of these cases, he could have never done or would have never done and got away with what he did in any other time, in any other place. It had to be in that location, had to be at that time. And you can even, to verify, you can even compare to things that are happening today and the people. Things wouldn't be going the way they were without the setting of our social media, of COVID, all that. There's so many things that happen that happened, and without them, we wouldn't be having the same issues. Like it affects the way we behave so much and how we act and react to others. But that's kind of the streamline to our lifestyle is through that, the setting. So I think if you want a good setting book, a good timing book, then that's why you buy my book. Plus, I need to buy hats because I'm losing my hair, right?
Alan, what's next for you? Any new book projects coming up? Any book signings?
Well, actually, what I've got is there's a book in a publisher right now about cults. Again, I know it's positive, but it's a little bit more detailed in some of the cults than I've done before. It goes a little further, and then I've got a whole stream of mystery fiction books coming out at the end of the year, near the end of the year, and so we'll see where that goes, but that's about it. I think I've got enough going.
It sounds like it. And how can people listen to your radio show, and who's a good guest for you if you're actually taking guests?
Well, AlanRwarren.com you can go to, and then you'll see House of Mystery. Click on that, or you could just type in House of Mystery. I think houseofmysteryradio.com is another one that goes to. You know what? A good guest is anybody that wants to talk. And we have a good variety. We'll have writers that are first-time books, first time doing any sort of art or directing or their own film. And then we have experienced guests too. We've had James Patterson and Dean Koontz, but at the same time, again, we'll have a brand new writer the next day. So we go all across the board. It doesn't matter about that. It just more matters about how, about who you are and what you're trying to do and stuff like that. So I think that's the best way to say it. So anybody, and you can listen to it by, like I said, the website, or you can go to the different stations that are listed on the website and listen to it at the times. Or the podcasts are up everywhere and on all platforms, and they're all listed on the website as well. So if you have a certain platform or something that you'd like to listen to, I think it's about everywhere nowadays,
Thank you so much. And if you're looking for a gift, Alan's got these great box sets. So you can go over to his website, Alan R. Warren, WARREN.com. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being here today and for staying extra. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, I appreciate taking the time and you having me on. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, please do come back and see us on another one of our shows. And in the meantime, I wish you continued success.
You too.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye now.
Thank you, everyone. Again, please do go ahead and go over to Alan's website. I'm putting it up again. It's Alan R. Warren, WARREN.com. Lots of great content and information about the books, about the radio shows. So please don't wait. If you don't go over there and take a look, you're not going to know what's there. All right. I am going to just share with you. I am the author of this book, Holy But Harmful, The Silencing of Judgment. And in here, there are 100 statements that we make very commonly about other people, and we don't even think about it. So I'm going to just read a few of them and see if any of them resonate with you. And that's the whole purpose of doing this show, is that we bring awareness about judging others. We do it all the time. I do it, you do it. And so again, I ask you to think before you speak. Is what you're about to say, is what you're about to post, is what you're about to write, is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it true? And if it's not those three things, think again. Okay, here we go. No wonder he left her. If only she kept her mouth shut and lost weight. Okay, that is a very judgmental statement. And some of you might be laughing, and it's actually not funny. It's very judgmental. Here's another one. They live like hoarders, labeling people. She's divorced twice, so she can't commit. He never went to college, so he can't be that smart. She's a teacher. She obviously couldn't make it in the corporate world. You kids have no idea what real hardship is. Gen Z is lazy. At her age, she should know better. Okay, I could go on and on. I only put 100 of them in here. So I wrote this book to bring awareness of how and when we are judging others and when we're being judged. And when we're being judged, what is it that we can do? So we always have a choice. Every day that we wake up, we have a choice. Are we going to engage, or do we choose not to engage? Are we going to step into the fire and keep the fire going? Or are we going to choose to walk away? So the choice is yours, but you can get this book as well as the workbook. You can get it anywhere where fine books are sold, in bookstores as well as Amazon. So thank you again for being here today, for watching. If you haven't done so yet, what are you waiting for? Please do subscribe to our channels, USA Global TV and Radio, and Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, where you can watch all of our shows. Our shows are in 3 different languages. We've got German, English, and French for some of our programs. And if you'd like to be a guest, you can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com/book your session. Okay, we're going to go over to our sponsors right now. Please take a look. Do you know anyone who has dementia? Are you experiencing memory loss? If so, you're not alone. My friend and one of our team members, Tracy Cram Perkins, has written an incredible book. Over 17,000 copies sold so far. And I know when my mother was going through dementia, this book and Tracy helped me beyond words. The help was priceless. So you can go ahead and watch this video and then order your own copy of the book, Dementia Home Care, before, during, and after. And please do share it with others. Thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing. Goodbye for now. USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care, How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.